Good morning. Alors, mesdames, messieurs, chers collègues, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Mon nom est François Cartier, je suis archiviste à l'Institut national de la recherche scientifique du Québec, l'INRS. Je suis aussi enseignant, je suis chargé de cours à l'Université du Québec à Montréal et à l'Université de Montréal. Today I'll have the pleasure and honor of acting as facilitator for today's meeting. In less glorious words, I'm the one who checks the clock and keep things moving. I'll try. Avant-hier soir, j'étais en classe avec un groupe d'étudiants à la maîtrise en sciences de l'information en train de parler de description, de catégories d'accès, d'indexation non thématique ou de contrôle d'autorité. I was telling my students that I would be attending a meeting in Ottawa that would begin to chart the future of our national description standard. I also reassured them that they were not learning something that would be obsolete overnight. We still have a long way to go. Alors oui, je pense que nous avons une longue route devant nous, mais comme tout projet de la sorte, il faut bien commencer en quelque part. So we are starting today. Je me sens donc privilégié de pouvoir participer à cette journée qui deviendra une étape importante dans le renouveau de nos outils de description en archivistique au Canada. I was asked to tell you about a few items here for the meeting. First, we are being filmed. You are being filmed. And you probably know there's a consent form to be signed and to be given to Isabelle if it's not done already. So first thing, you're being filmed. Second, the CCA prepared some reference material for all of us. It's on the tables over there. So you have copies of RAD, copies of RAD 2, the defunct RAD 2, the results of the survey, and a few other reference documents. So during the day, if you want to refer to these documents, they're freely available. And lastly, about the microphones on the table, just a note to tell you that only 2 microphones can be turned on at the same time. If a third one comes on, I think it switches off the other one, the last one that was activated. So if you want to cut someone off, you can do that, but just to let you know that's how it works. Only 2 microphones can work at the same time. So that's it for me. So now I would ask Lara Wilson, chair of the CCA, to address you and give you a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Good morning, everybody. We're just having a mic moment here for the shorties. As we begin this most important and long-awaited meeting, I acknowledge with respect the Algonquin Anishinaabe people on whose unceded territory we gather today. I'm Lara Wilson, chair of the board of directors of the Canadian Council of Archives, and the Director of Special Collections and the University Archivist at the University of Victoria, British Columbia. Au nom du comité de direction du CCA et du secrétariat, mais aussi de nos membres, qui comprend plus de 800 institutions d'archives à travers notre pays, 13 archives provinciales et territoriales, Bibliothèque et Archives Canada, l'Association Canadian Archivists et l'Association des Archives du Québec. Je vous remercie de prêter votre expertise aux discussions très attendues sur l'avenir des règles de description des documents d'archives, la norme canadienne pour la description archivistique. On behalf of the CCA Board and Secretariat and our members, which include the over 800 institutions across Canada, the 13 provincial and territorial archives, Library and Archives Canada, our hosts today, the Association of Canadian Archivists, and l'Association des Archivistes du Québec, thank you for lending your expertise to this eagerly anticipated discussion on the future of the rules for archival description, Canada's standard. CCA's mandate is to preserve and provide access to Canadian documentary heritage, by improving the administration, effectiveness, and efficiency of the archival system. And we do this through fostering development and cooperation within the Canadian archival system, by assisting and supporting member archival institutions through programs and services that benefit Canadians. Canadian archivists were pioneers in the development of archival descriptive standards. The first edition of the Rules for Archival Description was published in 1990 under the auspices of the Bureau of Canadian Archivists Planning Committee on Descriptive Standards. These standards were inspired, following the initial publication of RAD, CCA's Committee on Archival Description has been responsible for monitoring, promoting issues related to archival descriptive standards within the context of the Canadian archival system. Recently, CCA was contracted by Library and Archives Canada to develop a plan to update and revise RAD. And Canadian archivists' contributions to descriptive standards not only established RAD, but also contributed to international standards as well. The creation of RAD and the subsequent revisions in the late 2000s, and the thoughtful research, reflection, and effort that has led to today's meeting exemplifies the cooperative approach members of the Canadian archival system bring to the challenges of acquiring, preserving, and providing access to Canada's documentary heritage. From the smallest to the largest archives, whether pooling human and material resources for community outreach activities, contributing to database development, or devoting volunteer time to assess our community-based descriptive standard, we work together for the benefit of Canadians. Today, former students of the archivists who worked on the original project are here to lend their expertise. Today, with feedback provided by archivists and institutions across Canada, colleagues will chart the course for the future of the RAD standard, identifying what works, what doesn't work, and what needs to change so that we can continue to enhance Canadians' access to their history. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Librarian and Archivist of Canada, Dr. Guy Berthiaume. Under Dr. Berthiaume's leadership, the relationship between LAC and the Canadian archival community has been renewed and strengthened in the last year and a half. The community sees this in venues such as the LAC Stakeholders Forum, the Canadian Archival System Working Group, LAC's new publication signatures, public exhibitions featuring selections from LAC's rich holdings, and operational updates from LAC staff at regional archival conferences. Thank you, Dr. Berthiaume, for hosting today's meeting of experts.
Thank you, Lara. Merci, merci François. Bonjour, good morning. I'm really pleased to see the community here at Library and Archives Canada as you set about discussing the future of the rules of archival description. I think this Pellan room is the best one to have this type of discussion. Behind me is what I call Metadata Nightmare. If you want to describe what you're actually seeing in that picture, good luck. Litmus test maybe for your standards, if you're able to do that. Like Lara said, the archival community has been working on standards for over 20 years. You're talking about the second generation now of colleagues, and it would not have been possible without the intense collaboration we've seen since the 80s, actually. So that's almost 2 generations. So I'm really pleased to see that so many Canadian experts are here today, me excluded, of course, but also including our own staff at LAC, especially Kat Timms, who sits on the CCAD. I want to take this opportunity to thank CCA and the CCAD for their tremendous work leading up to today. The national survey that led us to today's event and your dialogue will determine the way forward for the future of RAD. I also want to underscore the connection between your work and the recently launched strategy titled Canada's archives, a new blueprint, again mentioned by Lara, a roadmap that calls for collective action. Of course, Canadian standards work appears in the very first section of that strategy. So LAC is proud to participate in the strategy alongside the CCA, Association des Archivistes du Québec, the ACA, and CPTA. We look forward to the findings of your meeting today and to reviewing the report detailing your plans to move forward. I wish you all a fruitful discussion, and thank you again for meeting here at 395 Wellington.
Okay, hi, my name is Richard Dancy. I'm an archivist at Simon Fraser University and a member of CCAD. So I thought I'd just take a few moments very quickly to kind of give the CCAD kind of perspective on why we wanted to have this event and what kind of the hoped for outcomes were. I guess when I first got involved in CCAD was towards the end of 2008, which was when CCAD was just sort of wrapping up and implementing the last round of revisions to the standard. And, you know, don't want to rehearse the whole history of all that, but I think it's fair to say those were kind of sort of smallish changes in the sense they didn't address the sort of big questions around the structure of RAD, and they weren't intended to. The structure, the relationship to the new standards, international, and so on. And since 2008, we've kind of been stuck there. So I think that's why we're here today, in a sense, is just to see if we can kind of kickstart a process, whatever we call it, RAD renewal, RAD revision, or RAD replacement. That's sort of the question to look at, I think. That's what we're sort of hoping. So the idea was to get a group of people together, sort of hash out the major issues, try to come up with some consensus, make some recommendations about where we want to be going with descriptive standards in Canada. So that was sort of the goal. In terms of the structure of the day, we thought we'd sort of do it in terms of, here's a series of questions, discussion questions. What are the answers coming back? What's the consensus? Those questions are kind of embodied in that survey instrument that we put out back in November. They sort of fall into about 6 groups of questions, and that's how we structured the agenda today. So we've got about 50 minutes for each block of questions, and the hope would be that at the end of each of those, we could kind of summarize and make some recommendations and then carry on. CCAD will do a final report, a report of this meeting that we'll submit to the CCA board and to the community at large. And, you know, what that looks like will really depend on the discussions today. So hopefully at the end, maybe we can come back and just, if people have thoughts about what should be in that report. I think we did want to make sure that this event doesn't take place in a vacuum, that really if it's going to have any resonance, there has to be a wider discussion in the community. So CCA encouraged the provincial territorial councils to hold their own consultation meetings. We put out that survey instrument in November, and we got quite a bit of feedback, I think. It was 110 respondents, which I think is pretty good. You've had a chance to look at the results, and we did up a little sort of summary document of it, which was also available. So in terms of, just want to maybe clarify a couple of things since I've got a captive audience here about that report, because there was a couple of clarifications that, just for the record, kind of wanted to get out. So in that analysis document, there's a sort of breakdown of respondents. And the first one that went out, I put New Brunswick not responding in terms of the provincial territorial councils. They did respond, so that was just brain cramp. Sorry about that, New Brunswick. And we corrected that, and that's there. But there's also still a kind of misleading part in that same section where there's a table that sort of breaks down respondents by province. And there's a row there for Ontario/Quebec LAC, and it says 0 individuals, 1 group. So that's not really true. We had 5, I think it was 5 respondents from LAC, but what happened was the group is registered under Ontario/Quebec, but the individuals were under whatever province they had put in their contact information, typically Quebec or Ontario. So we'll just clarify that. So apologies, LAC, if there's any confusion around that. I'm not going to say a lot about that, but just maybe for me, the sort of takeaways coming from that, where people are interested, there is a kind of sentiment for change, I think, and it all sort of points to aligning with the international standards in one form or another. And I guess what form that is sort of the question. It seemed to me few people were sort of happy with what RAD does now with digital material. and that's a looming issue that everyone kind of wants addressed. So a fresh rethink of that. And the other thing that really stood out was people are engaged in this issue, and they want input and they want transparency in the process. So whatever we do, I think that has to be front and center if it's going to be successful. So I'll just leave it at that. There was tons of interesting ideas in that feedback, and I think they'll come out in the discussion today. So I'll just turn it over there. Yeah, I think what we were going to do at this point was just have a go around of introductions. So.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, why don't we do a tour de table so everybody can introduce him or herself? Why don't we start here?
Does that mean it's on? Here you go. I'm Heather McNeil, Faculty of Information, University of Toronto.
I'm Christina Nichols with the Canadian Council of Archives.
I'm, Greg Bach from the University of Manitoba.
Dan Galeen with the Archives Association of British Columbia.
Tim Hutchinson from the University of Saskatchewan.
Martine Carnet from University Laval.
Creighton Barrett from Dalhousie University Archives.
David Mawhinney from Mount Allison University Archives.
Anna Saintonge from York University.
Brini Drogopalis from Archives Society of Alberta.
Jamie Saran from the Council of Nova Scotia Archives.
And I'm Lisa Snyder from Canadian Museum for Human Rights, and I'm also the ACA rep today.
Raymond Frogner from the Royal BC Museum.
Richard Dancy from Simon Fraser University Archives.
Jennifer Douglas, Slace at UBC.
Kat Timms, Library and Archives Canada.
Bill Leonard, Library and Archives Canada.
Paul Henry, City of Ottawa Archives.
You're Mr. Berthiaume, aren't you? Yeah, okay. And I should also point out that...
you want to guests in the back?
Yeah, sure, the guests in the back. I don't know if there's like a roving microphone for you, but maybe you could introduce yourselves. Yes?
Stand up and chat.
I'm Shaun Berrigan. I'm the Vice Chair of the Canadian Council of Archives. I'm here as an observer, not an expert.
Hi, my name's Amy Spooner. I'm a second-year Master of Archival Studies student from UBC.
I'm Michelle Spile. I'm a second-year dual student, so dual MLIS and MAS from UBC.
Hi, my name's Courtney Maxwells. I'm a second-year MI student at the University of Toronto.
I'm Jared Buchwald. I'm one of the students in the Master of Archival Studies program at the U of M, and I'm one of the digital archivists at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation.
I'm Kevin Polenda. I am in my second year of the Master's program in Archival Studies at the University of Manitoba.
Hilary Morgan, Library and Archives Canada.
Emily Jurup, Library and Archives Canada.
Anne Chartrand, Library and Archives Canada.
I'm Isabelle Alain. I'm at the Canadian Council of Archives.
Hello, good morning. Louise Charlebois, the Canadian Council of Archives.
Okay, thank you, everyone.